In this explainer video, we'll be looking at how migration and inequality are interlinked. Migration can affect inequality, but inequality can also affect migration. But before we get into that, we need to first be clear about what we mean by migration and what we mean by inequality. Inequality concerns the distribution of attributes. So attributes could include things like income or consumption or access to services across a population. So it's really the differences in the distribution of these attributes across a population. The most common way to measure inequality is through the use of a Gini coefficient that is generally between 0 and 1. 0 equals perfect equality and 1 equals perfect inequality. So how does inequality affect migration? Well, frustration with one situation and high inequality can be a driver or reason that people would like to migrate. If there's the idea that inequality is not fair and that the reasons for inequality are due to lack of opportunities, these can be reasons driving the aspirations or the desire to migrate. Now we can turn our attention to how migration can affect inequality. Migration can increase inequality, it can decrease inequality, or it can have no effect, depending on who migrates. This depends on which part of society the migrants come from, so who migrates matters. If the migrants come from a lower socioeconomic background, then we generally see a more equalizing effect or reduction in inequality. However, we know from the previous video on this channel about the linkages between migration and poverty that it is often not the poorest of the poor who migrate. So if migrants come from a higher socioeconomic background, this is likely to increase inequality, since it is those who already have the most money, education, and access to opportunities that are also gaining through migration. There is, however, a general sense that the impact of migration and remittances on inequality is likely to actually vary over time. At the beginning of a community's migration history, when the costs of migration are higher, we generally see that only better off households are able to migrate or have a migrant. So here then, the distribution of remittances will be unequal, and then they can have notable negative effects on especially the income distribution in the community and increase inequality.